Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. I hope everyone can hear me. Mel, just let me know if you can't. Today, we have a really great webinar for everyone. It's entitled Making Business Intelligence Simple. And we have a guest speaker today, Marianne Williams, who I will introduce you to as well. I'm your host, Tina Abernathy, and I am an accounts manager at JN Software and Compuease. And I started my career off in community development and counseling. And over many years, it's morphed into many aspects of business and sales. I've always have a great passion for working with people and businesses, and I love to help people reach their goals. So today, as I mentioned, we have Marianne Williams, and she comes to us with over 20 years of IT and training experience. Marianne has been responsible for designing custom solutions using Access and Excel VBA. As technology has evolved, Marianne currently uses her skills to specialize in training PowerBI, a tool used for business intelligence. In her spare time, Marianne really enjoys hot air ballooning, and she enjoys being in the water, and she sounds like quite the adventurer. So welcome, Marianne. So just very briefly, before we get into this webinar, I just wanted to let anyone who doesn't know a little bit about the companies JN Software and Compuease. These are sister companies. They both offer training, either public or private training. But JN Software, that's been around since 2002, also offers consulting and database development. And actually, with regards to Power BI, we definitely specialize in consulting for Power BI, and I'll touch on that a little bit later just for anyone who might have some questions on that. At Compuease, with JN Software, we actually are all across Canada and the US. We offer services basically everywhere. With Compuease, it's Ottawa and the National Capital Region. That's the main difference, and it's public and online, or public and private training. And of course, right now we do all online training, but we do have a training center that, of course, at this moment is not being utilized, but hopefully in the future it will be again. So what sets us apart from other training companies? We offer fast quality customer service. We have highly skilled, experienced, and professional trainers, just like Marianne. We have a public class schedule, which I'll show you at the end just how to access it. And if you are interested in taking our courses, how simple it is to register online. Our classes run often, and if you are the only person to register, we guarantee to run that class. So you never have to be worried that we're going to cancel at the last minute. We always have live instructors. Nothing is ever pre-recorded. We have a learn or come back free policy for public classes. And we also offer 24/7 after training support. And we have, of course, both software and professional skills training. We do, if you do have some time to hop onto our website and just see what courses we offer, we do specialize quite a bit in Microsoft, of course, and Adobe, but we do tons and tons of professional skills training, which is becoming more and more popular. And we are really able to do everything online now. So if you have the time, and I'll show you again at the end just how to kind of navigate our site a little bit. And for anyone that takes our webinars, if you've joined us before, you know that we offer a free training and consulting audit. So basically, you reach out to us and we set up a consultation. Everything's absolutely free. We just get to know you a little bit better and your business and what kind of challenges that you may have. And then we kind of help navigate a way that you could potentially set up training. We also offer a ton of free resources. So we like to let people know what kind of blog articles or webinars. We just have a plethora of information, and sometimes it's hard to find that information. So we kind of let you know, how we can help you. Mel is here on tech support, just to mention, and she's put the link in for this consulting and training audit. If you have interest, click on there and register, or just give us a call or email us. If anyone's having any difficulty hearing or anything, then Mel's here, so you can just pop a little note in the chat box there and let us know. We, of course, offer a free webinar every single month. So we have a few coming up in the new year. We have one in January, which is our Microsoft, it's all on Microsoft projects. February, it's going to be a quick start guide to Visio. In March, it's OneNote. So if you have any interest, go ahead and register for those webinars. We're going to get into today's webinar in just a moment. I have the outline, and I'm going to pass my screen over to Marian in just a moment. But I just want to say, if you have any questions at all for Marian, just pop them in the chat window, and most likely she will respond to them when she's done her webinar. But anytime, just pop a question and be happy to help you out. Okay, so Marian, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to turn this over to you.
Thanks, and I'm going to stop my video so that it bandwidth is good, and I will share my screen with everyone. Okay, hopefully you all can see my screen, and I am in Excel, and the first thing I want to show you is the Excel data model. Now this has been in Excel for a few years now. It is in all the premium versions of Excel. So let's see what we can do with it. So here I have a list, it's probably not that long, 3,700 almost, but it is a list of our transactions by product ID. And I'd really like to know my top 10 products. So I have another list, another sheet, and that lists all my products. So originally we would have used the VLOOKUP and joined that information, added it onto the end here. I'm going to show you a different way using the Excel data model. First of all, you need to create a table. Easy to do, Control-T, press Enter. There's my table. And of course, table name, I'm just going to rename this to Trans. And then I'm going to go to the product sheet, Control-T, or format as a table. This has been in since 2007. And I don't know what we would do without it now. And we'll rename this products. Okay, so now I've got my two tables. I'm going to create a pivot table. And under Insert, Pivot Table. So selecting the data, it picked up my trans table because that's what I was on. You can see the marching ants. Choose where to put it. Usually you put it on a new worksheet. So this is the feature. Choose whether you want to analyze multiple tables. And so I do want to add this data to the data model. And what that will do is every table in this file will be added to the data model. Click on OK. So you can see at the bottom it was loading the data model. So here we have the regular pivot table. Notice that I was on the trans table, and that's active. But if I want to do access information from all the tables, I can click on All. I do want the product name, and so there I'm going to open this one up and choose the product name. And so there's the list of all of our products. I want a number to go with it that I can summarize, and so I'm going to open up Trans. And I think we have something here called Extended Price. Aha. So what happens then? There's no relationship between these two tables at this point. And so we end up getting a Cartesian product. This amount here, the 4 million and something, is actually our total. But since 2013, Excel has been smart enough to put up this auto detect. Now, it will only work if the column headings are the same and it's the same data type. So I'm going to choose auto detect. I'll click on close. There you can see that it has done its thing. And as I said, I want the top 10 value filters. Go to the bottom here. Top 10 by the price, sure. And so there's my top 10. So what did it actually do? Well, if you have PowerPivot, and I'm going to demo that in a moment, if you don't have PowerPivot, then you can go to your Data tab. And over here in your Data Tools, they have a relationship. And so there is the relationship. It was created automatically. It is not very nice to use. This is what you would see. But everything is based on having information that's the same on both tables. The first table, we have product ID, and that's our transaction table. Hopefully our tables, hopefully our products sell more than once. And so the product ID will occur many times on it. That's considered the foreign key. Then we have the other table, which is our products, and it's just a master list. So it's a unique ID. And so that is our primary key. I'm not changing anything. Okay, but if you have PowerPivot, so PowerPivot is an Excel, it's an add-in, but it's the COM add-in, and it's turned on through File. Now mine may look a little different because I have it, the resolution quite high, so I actually have to click more to go to My Options. So here's Options, Add-ins, it's right near the bottom. And I would select Excel, the COM add-ins, and click on Go. So these are all the add-ins that are available, and as you can see, I have my PowerPivot turned on. PowerView was around for quite a while. It's not working with the current version of Windows. I don't know why I have it on. Power Map is a great way to create three-dimensional maps that you can add a lot of information to. But that's about it for visuals, other than pivot table pivot charts. Okay, so click OK. It should, 90% of the time, PowerPivot will come on automatically. And if it doesn't, exit Excel and come back in. If that doesn't work, turn it on through your options, the ribbon, and just turn on the little checkbox for it. So here's PowerPivot. So when we created the data model, it actually, if you want to see the data model, you need to see it through PowerPivot. This is the ribbon for it. There's the data model, and there's Manage. So I click on Manage. Now it actually opens up a second window. If you were to look at your taskbar right now, you would see that you actually have two windows for Excel. One is just the file, and the other is PowerPivot. This does look like Excel, though. This is the trans table, and there's the products table. It is not editable. You cannot make any changes to any of these cells. Yes, you can add columns. Okay, you can add other calculations to it, but you cannot change the data. It's a downward stream only. You can't go back. So in PowerPivot, you can join, connect to other types of data, other data sources. What I really wanted to show you here was the diagram view. So for those of you that have used Access before, you're going to recognize this as the relationship window, a much nicer view of your data. If I hover on this join line, you can see what information is connected. So you can see that we have product ID on the trans table is connected to the product ID on the products table. Notice the 1, so meaning that it only occurs once on this table. And the asterisk means many. So that's our relationship, a one-to-many relationship. Okay, so this is PowerPivot in Excel. And I'm going to exit out of it. And on my Data tab, just want to point out this is where your Power Query is. It's under Get Data, and there is all of your data that you can bring in if you need to massage it first. Okay, so you can bring in data that you need to massage, or you can bring in data that you don't need to massage. So I'm not massaging any data for this one. So I'm going to go to a new file. And I'm going to go to PowerPivot and Manage. So before I actually bring the files in, let me just point out what it is I'm bringing in. So these are 2 Excel files and 2 Access databases. Notice the size of this one, 260 meg. It has one table that is over 2 million records. You can't bring that into Excel. Excel has a limit of just over 1 million, but we can do it through the PowerPivot. So I'm creating a data model. I need information from all of these sources in order to be able to create the output that I need. And so I'm going to come back into PowerPivot. I'm going to choose from database, and it is from Access. And there I'm going to browse to that folder. And of course that folder is on the desktop. And there it is, Contoso Sales. This is just a sample Microsoft database. And I will open. So you can, if there's security on it, you can set up security. I'm just going to click on Next. I'm going to select from a list of tables, or you could write SQL. So these are the tables that are in the database. I actually don't need them all. And so I'm going to use the select all because there's only 2 I don't need. So there is this one, and I'm going to exclude the entity and the promotion. And I'll say finish. Now remember, this is bringing in all the data from all of these tables. This table here called Fact Sales has over 2 million records. And you can see that it's already exceeded the Excel limit. So there it is, 2.2 million records. It analyzes them. There's success. And I'll click on Close. So you can see that it's working hard and behind the scenes there. There's my 5 tables that I brought in. There's the Fact Sales table, 2 million records. So that's the data view. I'm going to go to the diagram view. And it's not a little bit too big. Okay, so there you can see it. It brought in all the tables, and they're all connected. That's because it's from Access. And this is true from most database type sources. If there is a view and it's got the relationships already set, PowerPivot will try to create the relationship for you where it can. You can see that these are one-to-many relationships. And if I hover, you can see that one. But if I hover on the line, you can see that these are connected. This is connected again. You can move them around. Just it works very similar to Access. Okay, so there's my channel key. It's connected. It's really important to have a date table. A date table, especially when you want to do time intelligence. Your transactions may not occur throughout the month evenly. There may be missing dates. You don't want to skew your results because of you've got 5 dates that aren't being used in July. So by having a date table, it gets rid of that problem. There's actually a record for every date in the date table. Okay, so let's create a pivot table. Now I can do it from here, or I can go back into Excel and do it. So I'm just going to click pivot table. I don't need to do a new worksheet. I can just do it on this one. There's nothing in it. Click on OK. It's automatically on all. I'm just going to choose. Oh, actually, I should bring in the other files first. So let me go back to manage. So I only brought in the one database. So let's bring in the other database from Access. And that one is the product categories. And next. Next. It's only got the one table, so we'll finish. It's not a very big table. Sometimes this happens. There we go, 8 rows, and it took longer, almost longer than the other one took. Okay. You can see that it is working behind the scenes. is creating relationship between the product table and the product subcategory table. Okay, so call me a liar. It didn't this time. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so there we have our information, the product category key to the product category key, and that creates the relationship. You can see down here, you get information about what's happening. So now I'm going to bring in the two Excel tables. Now, so that's from a database. This is from a data service. This is from other sources. And this is where they hit Excel and CSV files right at the bottom. So there's my Excel file. Next. So I need to browse to it. So it's still pointing to the right place. So I'll bring in the geography table and open. This is a trick. Use the first row as column headings, or you're going to get column 1, 2, 3. Click on next. Only got the one table in there, so I'll click on finish. 600 rows brought in. And it's doing its thing again. It does tell you that it may take several minutes. The more data that you have in there, the longer it will take. But still, okay, so my last table I'm going to bring in is Excel. And this one is the stores table. And open, use the first row, don't forget to do that. You can fix them afterwards, but it's just more work for you to do. And so there's not very many stores, 300 odd. And it's doing its thing again. Will it create the connection? Stores are connected to the sales table and also the geography table. And so I'm going to connect them. Okay, so I can move them all around. I'll just make this a touch smaller. And I'll bring stores over here. And there's my sales table. There's the store key. I want to relate it to the store key. And then I'm going to relate the geography key from here to the geography key on the geography table. Geography key to the geography key. You'll notice that it does recognize which way the relationship goes. So you don't have to worry about, am I dragging from the one to the many? PowerPivot will handle that automatically for you. Now we can create the pivot table. Okay, so I'll go back. So I'm going to cancel. We already have it here. And so I'll put it back on the pivot table. There's all. Now we have all the tables in here. So I'm going to do something. I'm going to take the product category. There's the product category name. So there's a list of our product categories. I know that we have 3 amount fields, so I'll just type AMO. The lovely feature here is that contains, not it begins with. And I want to take the sales amount. So this is totaling up 2.2 million records. There we go. And I want to break it out by date. And then so I'm going to look for year. And there is the calendar year label, which I will drop in the columns. And you can see how quickly that summarized our data. So the beauty is that PowerPivot and Power Query are part of the Power BI. So Power BI is a service, and we're going to look at the desktop application. I'm going to demo exactly what I did here. So I'm just going to close out of this. I'm not going to save it. And we don't need the data model anymore. Okay, so Power Pivot. So Power BI Desktop is the another way that you can do exactly what I just showed you. It is a way that you can bring in data. Notice that they know that Excel is very common, and so it actually has its own icon on the ribbon. The get data, these are the most common. I want to bring in access, so I'm going to click on the more at the bottom here. And it will bring up the dialog box. There we go. Okay, so these are all the different data sources that you can bring in. The list is growing every month. Power BI Desktop is an application from Microsoft that is updated monthly. You'll see a lot of them will be in beta. Actually, I don't see any in beta right now. As I get farther down, there's QuickBooks, online beta, plan view. You can link to SharePoint. Okay, so there's a lot of different data sources that you can connect to. So I'm going to do the Access Database one, and I will connect. And again, we want to do it to the desktop. And so there's Contoso Sales. I'm going to open. So while it's doing this, okay, it's going to give me my list of tables. One of the differences between Excel and Power BI, there's no check all. So I do miss that. Okay, so I have to individually select them. Okay, so there is the channel. If I just select the actual name, it gives me a preview of it, but it's not selected. I want the product, I want the subcategory, and I want the sales. Typically, database information is in good shape, and so you don't need to transform it. Not like the data dumps that we sometimes get from different sources that we have to remove blank rows and get rid of date stamps, change the columns from text, etc. Okay, in that case, you would go to transform data. But this data is actually okay, so we're just going to click on load. So it's actually doing the same thing that we did in Excel. It is loading in the data. It is creating a connection in the model. And then it's actually bringing in all that data, and you'll see the numbers showing up in a moment. And so there it is. And let me see if I can scroll down a little bit here. And so you can see that there's our sales table here again. And so it's zipping quite quickly through it all. There we go. And after this, it now will create relationships if it can. Okay, so let me bring in the other data and then I'll explain what the window that we're seeing. So the second window is again the access. And so there's the access database that I'm going to connect to. And there's our product categories. So the GUI, or the graphical user interface, the dialog boxes are very similar. Here we're going to select our product category. There's our 8 categories that we have. And again, I'm just going to load it in. You may notice over here that it's adding them over here alphabetically. So now we can do the 2 Excel ones. So there's our geography table. Notice how this one shows up twice. Now, if you look closely, the icon with the blue line across the top, that's referencing a table. And this one, dim geography, this is the little tabs underneath. So that's the sheet name. If you can bring in a table, of course, it's much more efficient to do that. If not, you can still bring in the entire sheet. And you may have to massage that by transforming your data. But we don't have to here. Everything looks good, so we'll just load it in. And that is our geography table. Last table is the stores table. It's very typical to have to bring in data sources, multiple data sources, because you want to pull data from your accounting system, your inventory, your management system, etc. Okay, same situation here. I want to just bring in the stores, and I will load that in. And we will see the stores table over here. So what we're looking at right now is the report view. This is new. This just came in the October update. These little icons here. It used to just be a blank, all totally white, but it is telling you that you actually can create your visuals here by just dragging them from your fields over here. So this is the report view. You can see the little yellow line up here. I know it's almost like there was a disconnect between the teams building Power BI versus Word and Excel. Maybe you've been using those programs often enough to remember those viewing icons have moved around quite a bit, and they all have their home now at the bottom. And I'm sure they're going to do the same thing with Power BI down the road. But for right now, we have the viewing icons here. So this is the report view. The next one is the data view. So when I click on this, you're going to see, just like we saw in the PowerPivot in Excel, these two buttons here are PowerPivot and the PowerPivot feature from Excel. This is how you view your data. And I can look at my fact sales, and that will now show me my data on fact sales. Again, you cannot change the data going backwards. Okay, this is a one-way stream, data stream into Power BI. You can add information, you can modify the information. Up here you can see that you can create columns, you can create new tables, but you can't impact the data itself. Okay, so this is the data view, and the next one down is the model view. Again, the relationship window from Access, or now PowerPivot. This is a little feature that they've done to make it easier to see the icons on the table. So I'm just going to click it. It takes a moment. These are some task panes that you can use for more information. And I'm going to go to the bottom right, and they have this fit to screen. So you can see that all the tables are here. This is the only one that was, for some reason, not connected. I'm going to put it over here, and I'm just going to move it around a little bit just so we can understand it a little bit better. And so there's our channel. Okay, so I'll try to zoom it back up a bit. Okay, so I'm going to connect. That might be kind of hard to read, but there's the date key on the sales table. And there on the dim date table is the date key. Again, it doesn't matter which way you drag, you do want to connect them. And so when I am dragging it, you can see that, nope, can't drop it there, but you can see that they used to have a yellow border around it. They seem to have gotten rid of that. Make sure you drop it right on top of the date key. And it will take a moment, and there is my relationship. Notice the difference. Slightly different. We had a green border in Excel, and now we have a gray with a gray border, but you do see that they are connected. And you do see that there's a one-to-many relationship there, so that our date table is connected to our sales table. We have our geography table connected to the stores table, which in turn is connected to the sales table. Now we can't see either of them just because alphabetically it's down here, and the same with this one. They put them in alphabetical order. And so now if I hover, you can see that they're connected. So I pulled in data from Excel, 2 different files, and from access to different files. And now it is all related. So if I want to create the same visual that I created in Excel, so this is the model view, and so I'll go back up here to the report view. So the report view tells you what to do. Select or drag fields from the Fields pane onto the report canvas. Well, the Fields pane is this one here. You'll notice there's a chevron, so you can hide it or not. The same is true for filters and visualizations. So we want to do what we did in Excel, which was to look at our total products by year. And so I'm going to open up my product category table. Again, if I can't quite read it, I can make my task pane a little wider. But notice what happens. This gets smaller. Okay, so I don't normally leave it open that wide. It's just when I can't read the entire name. So your choice, you can select it or drag it. And so if I click on this, you'll see there is my category name. I'm just going to move it down a little bit. Just going to move it, come on. Okay, move it down a little bit. You'll see it's very small, so I am going to change the size of it just to make it a little bit easier to see because I have all the panes open right now. Notice that it's ZE. I just typed and it will look for the size for all of the properties in this list here. I'm going to change the text size to be a little bit bigger. Okay, so there's my product category name. And the next thing was the amount field. I'll just type AMO at the top. It'll search through everything and find me my 3 amount fields. And I want to put the sales amount on the table. And so I will collapse my filter for a moment. So there's my sales amount. And I want to break it apart by year. So I move that one and type year. And there is my calendar year label. And I will check it off. Okay, so what happened there was it put it in a list. Okay, so that's not really what we want. What we really want is to break it apart. So look at this. This is called a table. So here's all the visuals that we have. Notice at the top we have column charts and bar charts, line charts, combo charts, many different types of visuals. Because I dragged or selected a text, it automatically defaulted to a table. Now I really want it to be more like a pivot table. And so there's the border on the table. The next one over is a matrix. And if I click on that, you'll see that it has my product category name, my sales amount, which is just what we saw. When I'm on this tab here, there's all the different buckets I can drop information into. I have rows, columns, and values. That sounds just like a pivot table. And so this time, if I click on or select the calendar year label, it knows that I actually want to put it in the columns. And I'm going to just make this a little bit wider again. And you can see there is exactly what we created in Excel. There's lots of things that you can do to make this look a lot better though. Number one, you can see that we have 4 decimal places. Well, you know, when we're talking about billions of data, billions of dollars, you really don't need decimals. And so if I click on the amount field down here, let me find amount field. So if I click on my amount field, just like working in any of the Office apps, we have contextual tabs. They've gone a little overboard with PowerBI. You can see that we actually have 4 contextual tabs up here. Format, data drill, table tools, column tools. The one you're on is the one that's underlined. And so there's my column tools. And what I want to do is I want to make the formatting. I don't want the decimal auto. I'm just going to decrease that to 0. And that will update my entire, everywhere that sales amount is being used. So that's how easy it is to create a table. I don't like the names on my table. I can change them right here. So if I double click on this one, I say, well, I really want it to say category. And so there's my category. And if I want the sales amount, just to say sales, so I can just click on sales. So that's how easy it was to just create the exact same thing that we did in Excel. This is one page of our report, and we can name our pages and add additional pages. So if I double click on the page down here, and I make this category, actually I should just put sales by category. Sales by category. And so there we have our sales by category. Okay, so I'm going to add another page. Now you saw last time I dragged a text field. This time, if I drag a numeric field, so I'll just take that amount. Here's my sales amount, and if I drag it onto the canvas, it will create a custom, a clustered column chart. And there's the actual data that we have. So we have almost 10 billion. It's over 8. Actually, if I hover, you can see that it's 8.3. Now, supposing I wanted to see that broken down by the brand. And so I have brand. And so if I drop brand on this, you can see that it automatically created my column chart, sales amount by brand name. If I don't want to see it as a column, here are my visuals. So supposing I wanted to see it as a pie chart. Okay. If I want to see it as a bar chart, there's the bar. So you can choose exactly how you want to see it. If I wanted to create another one, and this time I started with a geographical field. Well, there's my geography table. And let's see, say I wanted to see my sales by continent. So I will select continent. See what happened? It actually, because I had the handles on that chart, it added it to that. And so I think this might be better as a column, so I'm going to switch it back to the column in here. Okay, so North America, as you can see, by far has the best sales. I'm going to add another one. This time I'm going to start with just the continent name. And you'll notice what happens. It is a map. Okay, so there is the map that came up. Location is the continent name. Now, these are all the buckets that you can choose to drop your data in. If I add the data field here of the amount, and so I'm going to drag that and drop it into the size. And so you can see that the size of the buckets, or the size of these circles, become much larger. If I changed it, or if I added, what do we have after continent? Country. And so I do have a country field. And so if I scroll back up, and I put the country in here, and let me remove the continent. There we go. Okay, so now I'm just doing it by country, and if I hover over these, you can see, I can see the breakdown by the country. Now, Supposing I really wanted to know, well, what percent is it? So if I wanted, I could actually add the amount again, except I'm going to do it in the tooltip. So I'll take my sales amount, put it in my tooltip. Now, what does that do? It actually just tells me that twice, and that's not really what I want. So I am going to right-click, show the value as a percent of the grand total. So now, and I just want to rename these. So I don't want sales amount, I just want to say sales. Notice I'm having to do it every time I put it on a visual. More efficiently would have been to change it here, and then it would always show up as sales. This gives us practice, makes us remember. Okay, so this one here, I'm going to get rid of the amount as well. And I will delete that, press enter. So now when I hover over Australia, you can see that their sales are, 79 million, but it's less than 1% of our grand total. Now if I come over here, of course, the United States is at 57%, and us Canadians is much smaller. Okay. Now, so that's how easy it is to create the map. And what I was trying to demo here was the fact that when we started with a text field, it showed up as a table, and we converted that to a matrix. This one here, we dragged across a numeric field, and it defaulted to a column chart. Of course, once it's a column chart, then you can add additional information. There's the tooltip feature. You can change all the names however you want them to be. And then we have the map. So by bringing over a geographical location or type, it automatically generated a map. Okay, so we look at the data model. Okay, the actual data itself, and we look at geography. So there's our geography, and you can see that we have city name, continent name, we have region, country name. Now, these, if you want, because we have so many names that are the same, it's really a good idea to actually say what the actual type is. So if I come over here, and I can do it this way, I can click on the name in the field list, or I can click on it over here. It brings that same column tools back. And so there's our continent name. If I want to get rid of the word name, I can do so. Okay, so it's now called continent. In the properties section, there's the data category. And so you'll notice that this data category is mainly geographical. Okay, so there we have continent, and here we have continent. And so when I click on that, you can see that we have got the world, the little globe here as an icon. That will make Bing work much better locating what type of data it is. So the same with city name, we would change it so that it was a city. And then we would look at state province, and we would make that one state province. And there's our region country name, and so we would make that one country. You may notice that we have a lot of other information here, like the load ID. We have the ability to hide these. I can right click and I can say hide in the report view. And so I don't have to see all this other information that I'm never going to use in a visual. It'll just make my life a lot simpler. So I will hide some of these. And so now when I come back to my visual, and if I remove the criteria here, you can see that we have under geography. Sometimes they make these scroll bars a little too narrow. So there you can see that I've gotten rid of some of them. I should have gotten rid of a couple more, But you get the idea here that they are being categorized. And that will make the mapping much more accurate. Okay, so let's go back to the column one that we have here. So this is our data by continent, by brand. And so if I click on it, you'll notice that I have a couple little buttons at the very top of my visual. The first one tells me what type of filters, if I have any filters. And the second one allows me to analyze or to make this much larger. I click on it, you'll see that it takes up the whole report page. And so now I can actually see my data. Over here, these more buttons will allow me to export the data. And that will create a little CSV file for you. It will show as a table. So if I want to actually see the numbers, I can do that. If I want to look at it the other way, then I can. Now, if I collapse these, I can see more of it. Okay? And so that will allow me to see my data like that as well. Back to the report. And so there is my report. So we have a feature. So I've talked about the fields. All of the tables have all the fields, different types of visuals, and we have the ability to filter our information. Right now, we're looking at the brand, by continent, and by sales amount. And we haven't done any restrictions at all. So let me show you a slicer. I'm going to do a year slicer, and I'll just do we'll do the calendar year label again. So notice because it's text, it came in as a table. I'm going to have to open up my visuals so that I can see it. So there are a lot of visuals, and the one that we're looking for right now is called a slicer. When I click on a slicer, so here is my slicer calendar year. I happen to know the data, and I have no data for 2018 and 19. And so I don't want them to show up, because what would happen is I wouldn't see anything. Right? So if I chose something, 15, 16, or 17, it does work. So my calendar year label, I just wanted to show 15, 16, and 17. So this is filtering. I'm going to just collapse that, and I will collapse my entire filter. And so now if I click on these different slicers, you can see the impact of my values. Okay, so that is a slicer. Now I want 2015, and if I hover back on this again, and if I hover over that little martini glass, it's telling me what my filter is. The calendar year is for 2015. And so that's my slicer here. You can add slicers to any page. If I wanted to put a slicer on here, I could. My sales by category. You know, if I wanted to do this by channel, because there's my fields. And so I will choose the channel name. And again, notice how it comes in at the same size, just makes life a little easier. Change it to a slicer. And of course, I don't need it to be quite so big. And now if I click on online, or there is the store, or a reseller, Doesn't seem to want to click on reseller. There we go. Okay, so all the values will change. So the idea is that once you have created your report, and the report consists of different pages, then this can be saved. So if I click on save up here, little quick access toolbar, very little. You can't add anything to it yet, but I'm sure that's coming. And so I'm going to save this. It's in the same folder. And so I'm just going to call this demo, and I'll save it. And so there it has saved it. So I'm going to minimize this file just to show you the demo. So there's the icon for it. This is a Power BI. I'm just going to make it a little larger. So there is the Power BI file. Okay, different icon. I'll make it back to the list because this is really key. Remember Condoso sales, 260 odd meg? Well, our demo, which has all of that data in it, is so efficient, it's less than 50 meg. And the beauty is that whenever I want to refresh the data, it will go and, of course, this data is all static, but you can see that it's now going back out there for all of the data sources that we have. It is connecting to them all again and pulling in the latest data. So remember, what I'm showing you today is the Power BI desktop. It is an app that you can download from either Microsoft Store or just download a program. It is a little bit, there are some advantages to doing the Microsoft Store. This is just one piece. At the next part, you would publish it to the Power BI service, but that costs money. And that's as far as I'm going to go today. So I shall hand it back over to Tina, and I will look to see is there. Okay, so the question, okay, so let me just answer this question. How can you import from an Access database that has a password? You would have to use the security feature. And when you do the get data and you choose an Access that has a password on it, you will get prompted for your security credentials.
Okay, so while we're waiting for some more questions, maybe I'll just quickly go over how to book Power BI training on our website. So if you, Marianne, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, I am.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, so if you just hop on to our JN Software website, you can actually book a public class online. One thing to note about JN Software and Power BI is that since we offer consulting, we actually do consulting in Power BI, so maybe it's just that you need a specific report done up, and we can just offer a couple of hours of consulting to help you with that. We can kind of help guide you with exactly what you need to know if you didn't want to take an entire course. But we do offer quite extensive courses. So just to note, if it's of course under Microsoft, you go to the drop-down menu to Power BI. We offer 3 courses in Power BI, and if you wanted to sort of have that in a condensed version, so each of those courses are 2 days each, but we do actually offer a boot camp, and that is 5 days, but it includes absolutely everything. And if you just needed, and that's really great, and it's really great for public classes. If you wanted a private class, you know, we do customization. So, you know, reach out to us if there's something really specific that you wanted to kind of hone in on. If you did want to book a public class online, you just click more to register, and you just, on the right hand side of the screen, you kind of have an idea. We're offering courses in January and February, even into April, and you can just book right there online. You can kind of go through all of the course objectives and see if it makes sense for you. And again, as usual, I really recommend that you reach out to us if you have any questions at all, phone, email, and don't forget to follow us on social media as well, because we just post everything that's new. One more thing I really do want to mention about Power BI, since it's constantly changing, for our participants that do take our courses, we do offer courseware, and we do updates to it, because there are, again, it's constantly changing and there are updates. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Is there any more questions, Marianne? Let's just see, you're still on mute. Let me just check.
Okay, I'm not muted now. Sorry. Okay, can all the tables be combined into one tab to create a dashboard? Okay, so I'm not quite sure what you mean, but you can pull all the data and create multiple visuals on one page if you want. Like I just did them on separate pages here, but they could all be on one page itself. It doesn't matter where the data comes from. Any of these fields that you have, you can create as many visuals as you want on the same page to create a dashboard. Absolutely. It probably is a little too hard to read if you have more than 6 to 8, and that's why I would open it up into different pages. The other thing I should mention is for people that don't need to have interactivity, then you actually can save your file. Oh, you can actually save your file as a PDF. Yes, you actually can create a data table automatically. This one wasn't. This one was actually in the Access database, but under modeling, you actually can create a new table and using a DAX expression, create your date table. Okay, that's it for the questions, Sandra, Tina.
Okay, no problem. Thank you so much. That was excellent, Marianne.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
joining us today. And thank you to everyone for joining us. And hopefully we'll see you next time at our next webinar. All the best. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Tina.
Thank you.